Have you ever looked out the window of an airplane at cruising altitude? You look down at the clouds. You look down at the miniature world below, the tiny cars, the patchwork fields, the jagged mountains. And a thought crosses your mind, a terrified, intrusive thought that you quickly push away. What would happen if this plane just disappeared? What would happen if the floor opened up and I fell? Physics tells us the answer is simple. You would fall at terminal velocity, about 120 miles per hour. You would fall for about 3 minutes. And when you hit the ground, it would be over instantly. The human body is not designed to survive a fall from 10,000 feet. It is not designed to bounce. Surviving such a fall is a statistical impossibility. It is a 0% chance. But on Christmas Eve, 1971, the impossible happened. A 17-year-old girl was sitting in seat 19F on a flight over the Peruvian rainforest. One moment she was holding her mother's hand, eating a sandwich. The next moment, a bolt of lightning struck the wing. The plane disintegrated. And the girl found herself spinning through the air, still strapped to her seat, tumbling 2 miles down into the most hostile jungle on Earth. She hit the ground, and she opened her eyes. She was broken, she was bleeding, she was alone. But she wasn't dead. The fall should have killed her, it didn't. But the jungle was just getting started. For the next 11 days, this teenager would fight a war against nature itself. She would battle stingrays, crocodiles, and infection. She would perform surgery on herself using gasoline. And she would have to make peace with the fact that the vultures circling overhead weren't waiting for animals. They were waiting for her. This is the story of Juliane Koepcke. It is the ultimate story of survival gone wrong. It is the story of a girl who fell from the heavens and crawled through hell to get back home. If you are amazed by the resilience of the human spirit and the miracles that defy science, please hit that subscribe * button right now. You need to hear this story because it will make you rethink every flight you take and every step you walk in the woods. To understand the miracle, we have to understand the mistake. Lima, Peru, December 24, 1971. The airport was chaotic. It was Christmas Eve. Everyone was trying to get home. Juliane Koepcke was 17. She was a brilliant girl, smart, observant, and tough. She had just graduated from high school the day before. Her mother, Maria Koepcke, was a renowned ornithologist, bird expert. They were flying to Pucallpa, a city in the Amazon rainforest, to meet Juliane's father, Hans Wilhelm Koepcke, a famous zoologist. The family lived in a research station in the middle of the jungle called Panguana. Juliane wasn't a city girl, she was a child of the forest. She knew the trees, she knew the sounds. But to get there, they had to fly. And the only flight available was with LANSA Airlines. LANSA had a bad reputation. They had crashed planes before. People called them LANSA, the dance of death. Juliane's father had begged them, "Don't fly with LANSA, it's too dangerous." But Maria wanted to get home for Christmas. She wanted to see her husband. So they booked the flight. Flight 508. A Lockheed L-188 Electra turboprop. They boarded the plane. It was packed. 91 people, families, gifts, cakes. The atmosphere was festive. Juliane took the window seat. Her mother sat next to her. They took off into the blue sky, heading toward the Andes Mountains. The first 30 minutes were normal. They were served lunch. Juliane was happy. She was looking forward to the holidays. But as they crossed the Andes and approached the Amazon basin, the sky turned black. A massive thunderstorm was brewing. Usually pilots fly around storms, but it was Christmas. The pilot was under pressure to land on time. He decided to fly asterisk through asterisk it. It was a fatal error. The turbulence was violent. The plane was tossed like a toy. Luggage fell from the overhead bins. Christmas presents tumbled down the aisle. People started to scream. Juliane looked at her mother. Maria was nervous. "I don't like this," she said. Outside the window, Juliane saw a flash of white light. A bolt of lightning struck the right wing. She saw the fuel tank ignite. The wing tore off. In a split second, the structural integrity of the plane failed. At 10,000 feet, 3,000 meters, the aircraft broke apart. The noise was deafening, the screaming, the wind, the tearing metal. And then silence. Juliane felt herself being ripped out of the fuselage. She was still strapped into her row of 3 seats. She was spinning. She later described it as a feeling of absolute loneliness. One second she was in a crowded cabin. The next, she was alone in the sky. She saw the jungle canopy below. It looked like heads of broccoli. She spun like a maple seed. The row of seats acted like a crude helicopter, slowing her descent. The updraft from the storm cushioned her fall. She crashed through the trees. The vines and branches broke her fall further. She hit the forest floor. And everything went black. She woke up the next morning. She was lying in the mud underneath her seat. She looked up. She could see the sunlight filtering through the dense canopy 100 feet above. She was confused. She had a concussion. She checked her body. She had a broken collarbone. She had a deep gash on her right arm. She had a swollen eye that was almost shut. She was covered in scratches. But she was alive. She unbuckled her seatbelt. She stood up. Her first thought wasn't about pain. It was about her mother. "Mama," she called out. "Mama." Only the sounds of the jungle answered her. The buzzing of cicadas, the call of birds. She looked around. There was no smoking wreckage. There were no other bodies nearby. The jungle had swallowed everything. She found a small bag of candy, sherbet sweets, that had fallen from the plane. That was it. No water, no knife, no shoes. She had lost one sandal in the fall. She was wearing a sleeveless mini dress. It was the worst possible outfit for the Amazon. She was exposed. Juliane was injured and in shock, but she had a secret weapon. Her parents. Growing up in a research station, her father had taught her the golden rules of the jungle. He had told her, if you get lost, find water, find a trickle, follow it to a stream, follow the stream to a river, follow the river to a bigger river, and eventually you will find human beings. She knew she couldn't stay where she was. Nobody would see her through the trees. She began to walk. She found a tiny creek. She started to follow it. But the walk was agony. Her one bare foot was getting cut by thorns. Her vision was blurry from the concussion. She had lost her glasses in the fall, which for her was a disaster as she was very nearsighted. She had to feel her way through the green hell. She heard the engines of rescue planes overhead. Her heart leaped. But the canopy was too thick. They couldn't see her, and she had no way to signal them. After a few days, the planes stopped coming. She realized the search had been called off, or they were looking in the wrong place. She was truly on her own. As the creek turned into a stream, the water got deeper. It was safer to walk asterisk in the water than on the banks. The banks were thick with vegetation and hidden snakes. But the water had its own dangers. Stingrays. These freshwater rays bury themselves in the mud. If you step on one, the barb can pierce your leg and deliver a necrotizing venom. Juliane knew this. She walked by poking the ground ahead of her with a stick, shuffling her feet to scare them away. Then she saw the kings. Caimans, massive, alligator-like reptiles sunning themselves on the banks. Most people would freeze in terror. But Juliane remembered her father's advice. Caimans are generally not dangerous to humans unless provoked. She didn't run, she walked past them. She knew the real danger wasn't the big animals, it was the small ones. Part 6. The Feast of the Flies. The jungle is wet, it is hot, it is a breeding ground for bacteria. Juliane's wounds were open. She was getting bitten by mosquitoes constantly. But on the fourth day, she noticed something horrifying about the gash on her arm. It wasn't healing, it was getting bigger. And it was moving. Flies had laid eggs in her wound. The eggs had hatched. Maggots. Dozens of them, they were eating her flesh. She could feel them wriggling inside her arm. It was a psychological torture that is hard to describe. She was being eaten alive. She tried to pick them out with a stick, but they dug deeper. She worried she would lose her arm. She worried the infection would reach her blood and kill her. But she couldn't stop. She had to keep moving. On the fourth day, she found a row of seats from the plane. It had crashed through the trees and landed by the river. She rushed to it, hopping to find her mother. She found 3 bodies. They were still strapped in. They had hit the ground with such force that they were buried 3 feet deep, head first. Only their legs were sticking out. Juliane recognized the shoes of one of the women. It wasn't her mother. It was a moment of horror, but also a strange relief. Her mother might still be alive somewhere. She kept walking. By day 10, Juliane was dying. She had eaten nothing but the small bag of candy, which was long gone. She was drinking river water, which was brown and full of parasites. She was drifting in and out of consciousness. She hallucinated food. She hallucinated rescue. She saw a large river, the Shibanya. This was good. A big river meant people. But the current was strong. She had to swim. She floated in the water, letting the current take her. She was so weak she couldn't pull herself out of the water at night. She slept on the muddy bank, half submerged, shivering, while the insects feasted on her. She looked at her arm. The maggots had grown. The hole was deep. She thought, this is it. I'm going to die here. She remembered seeing vultures circling in the sky. She knew they were waiting for her to stop moving. Day 10, afternoon. Juliane stumbled upon something that didn't look like nature. A shape. A boat. A small wooden canoe with an outboard motor tied to the bank. She thought it was a mirage. She touched it. It was solid. She looked around. She saw a small hut, a shelter used by lumberjacks. It was empty. But there was a fire pit, and there was a can of gasoline. Juliane remembered something else her father had done. Once, their dog had maggots, and he used kerosene to get them out. She didn't have kerosene. She had gasoline. It was going to hurt. She took the fuel. She poured it directly into the open, infected wound on her arm. The pain was blinding. It seared her nerve endings. But it worked. The maggots, suffocating from the fumes, started to crawl out of the wound to escape. Juliane pulled them out, one by one. She counted *35 maggots *. She cleaned the wound as best she could. She collapsed on the floor of the hut. She didn't try to take the boat. She was too weak to start the motor. She decided to wait. If the boat was here, the people would come back. She spent the night in the hut. It was the first time in 10 days she had a roof over her head. Day 11. Juliane heard voices. Human voices. She thought she was dreaming again. But then 3 men appeared from the forest. They were Peruvian lumberjacks. They stopped dead in their tracks. Imagine what they saw. A teenage girl, skeletal, bruised, eyes swollen shut, covered in mud and dried blood, emerging from the shadows of their hut. They were terrified. In their local folklore, there is a legend of the Yemenja, a pale, blonde water spirit that lures men to their deaths. They thought she was a ghost. They backed away. Juliane realized they were scared. She spoke to them in perfect Spanish. "I am a girl who was in the LANSA crash," she said. "My name is Juliane." The men realized she was human. Their fear turned to pity. They rushed to her. They gave her water. They gave her food. They looked at her wounds. They were horrified. They treated her arm. They cleaned her up. They put her in their canoe. The lumberjacks took her downriver. It was a 7-hour journey to the nearest station. From there, a local pilot flew her to the hospital in Pucallpa. When she landed, her father was waiting. The reunion was heartbreaking. Hans Wilhelm Koepcke had spent 11 days searching. He had flown over the jungle himself. He had almost lost hope. When he saw his daughter, broken but alive, he collapsed. But the first question Juliane asked was, "Where is Mama?" The search team used Juliane's information to locate the crash site. They found the wreckage spread over miles of jungle. They found the bodies. They found Maria Koepcke. And the truth was devastating. Maria had also survived the fall. But she was injured much worse than Juliane. She couldn't move. She had lived for several days after the crash, trapped in her seat, calling out for her daughter. She died alone in the jungle, likely just a few hundred yards from where Juliane had started walking. If Juliane had gone the other way, maybe she would have found her. Maybe she could have helped. It is a guilt that Juliane carried for decades. The story of Juliane Koepcke is not just about luck. Yes, the physics of her fall was a miracle. The updraft, the seat spin, the canopy, it was a 1 in a billion chance. But the asterisk survival asterisk, that wasn't luck, that was knowledge. Any other teenager would have stayed by the plane and died of starvation. Any other teenager would have run from the Caymans and gotten lost. Any other teenager would have let the infection take their arm. Juliane survived because she respected the jungle. She didn't fight it, she navigated it. She knew the rules, follow the water. She knew the biology, gasoline kills maggots. She saved herself with her mind. Juliane Koepcke went on to become a biologist, just like her parents. She returned to Panguana. She dedicated her life to studying the very ecosystem that almost killed her. She didn't hate the jungle, she understood it. She famously said, "The jungle is not my enemy, it is just life." She is the girl who fell from the clouds. She is the girl who walked through the valley of the shadow of death. And she is the proof that even when your world disintegrates at 10,000 feet, you can still find your way home if you just keep following the river. This story is absolutely mind-blowing. The part about the maggots, I don't know if I would have had the stomach to do what she did. It's pure survival instinct. Do you think you could have performed surgery on yourself in the middle of the jungle? Let me know in the comments below. If you are in awe of Juliane's courage, please hit that asterisk like asterisk button. Let's honor her incredible journey. And subscribe asterisk. I have a story coming next week about a man who was lost at sea for 438 days and survived by catching birds with his bare hands. Stay safe, listen to the safety briefing, and never stop learning.